Our last panel is a topic that is dominating headlines across the nation and directly impacting neighborhoods in LA County: immigration. This panel is titled Immigration Building Cross-Community Solidarity. Specifically, we are tackling solidarity among the Black and Brown communities impacted by immigration enforcement. Individuals on this panel are immersed in day-to-day response efforts. Joining us in this conversation is the chair of Inclusive Action for the City, who is an immigration policy expert, Angie Jean-Marie. Jean-Marie is also the founder of Fait la Force Strategies. Her company provides social impact consulting for nonprofits, businesses, and individuals. We are pleased to have with us today David Huerta, an immigration activist and prominent union leader of the Service Employees International Union, SEIU. His arrest while peacefully protesting an ICE raid on June 6 drew international headlines. Plus, we have attorney Nana Gyamfi. She is the executive director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration and the co-founder of Justice Warriors for Black Lives and Human Rights Advocacy. Our next panelist is Victor Leong, the Chief Legal and Advocacy Officer at ACLU of Southern California, where he leads the affiliate's Advocacy Legal Department, which comprises more than 50 attorneys, policy advocates, organizers, and supports staff across Los Angeles, Orange County, the Inland Empire, and Kern County. We are thrilled to also have Marta Arevalo. She is the executive director of Central American Resource Center, also known as CRECEN. Marta is leading the national voice for the Central American immigration community and comes from a family that fled strife in El Salvador when she was 11. And today's moderator is 16-time Emmy Award-winning news anchor and my friend and colleague, Enrique Chiabra. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a warm welcome. Enrique, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Melissa. So it is my pleasure to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the panelists for being here, making the time to be here. It's the last panel, so we're going to make it really exciting. We have a lot of information to go through. So immigration is a really sensitive topic, as we know. And regardless where you stand politically, if you live in Los Angeles, which most of us do, you've been exposed to immigration either by your personal story, your background, your family, your parents, or maybe you met someone in Los Angeles who's impacted by immigration, by this issue. As we know, as we were just talking about this, immigration has taken a front row seat to our lives in the past few months. On the news, we see it all the time. Specifically, our city, Los Angeles, as we know, was the epicenter of the immigration operations back in June, and it was like that throughout the whole summer. DHS actually just reported a few weeks ago that from June, the beginning of June, all the way to August 26th, they had arrested, or ICE had arrested 5,000 undocumented immigrants. And you might be wondering, is that a lot? Is that little? Is that normal? We're gonna get to that with our panelists in just a few more minutes. But the focus today is the Latino and the Black immigrant communities. How can they come together? How can they work in solidarity, specifically regarding the issue of immigration? So we're gonna get right into it with attorney Nana Gyamfi. Attorney Nana, thank you for being here today. Where do you see this solidarity? What spaces can happen between both communities to work together?
Thank you so much for the question. I'm so glad to be here and honored to be here with my comrades. Yes, my name is Nana Gyamfi. I'm with BAJI, the Black Alliance for Just Immigration. We fight for the rights of Black migrants and African Americans through advancing racial justice and immigrant rights. So this issue of solidarity as Black people, both citizen and immigrant, is one that is really what our founding is about. Immigration is a racial justice issue. Okay? W.E.B. Du Bois teaches us that we know that something is a racial justice issue when it falls along color lines. Raise your hand if you've seen a bunch of complaints about hundreds and thousands of Ukrainians that are here in this country. Raise your hand. Are they going to the Irish pubs to collect people? Right? The white Canadians. So we know when we see the targeting of Black folks, of brown folks, of Asian folks, of indigenous folks, that what is happening is a racial issue. And we know that when we talk about racial issues in this country, and anywhere where Black people were enslaved or colonized, that the people who feel the biggest brunt of that are Black people, right? And so whether you're a citizen, whether you're an immigrant, you're seeing, think about Chicago, think about the first person who was stopped by Marines here in Los Angeles was a brother who was a veteran from the United States of America, right? Multi-generational, African-American. We understand that the only refuge we have from the terror of white supremacy that we're seeing is our unified resistance. We are gonna have to block these people with our unified resistance, and we're gonna have to build the community with each other that we already have, mind you, right? But make it even stronger, make it even broader, so that we can engage in the mass disruptions that you, us, know need to happen in order to turn this thing around.
Thank you, Nana. Attorney, actually, we're going to go with David Huerta now from SEIU USWW. So we know that there are always tensions when it comes to marginalized communities. So in this case, the Latino and the Black immigrant communities, how can they come together when they're almost sometimes just competing in a way when they've been in those spaces for so long?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and thank you for having me here today. And a little riffing off of what Nana said, I think our unity is our key, right? Right now, as we sit here, right, there is an intention of out there through federal forces, through militarization, through violence, to really intimidate us, to diminish us, and to divide us. And I think, we have to really lean into this moment right now, especially as a community. But I think the work we have to do is also in community, right? Because like you said, there's been tensions between the Black and brown community. Let's not kid each other. That's a truth. And we should not shy away from that. We should lean into that. We should accept it. Not accept it, that's the wrong word. We should work through it, right? And one of the things, I belong to, I think, probably one of the greatest labor organizations in the country, SEIU, plus my local USWW. But, under the leadership of then, President Verrett now, but, we leaned in and really talked about racial justice as an organization. We studied it. We came together around it, and we really worked on it and really tried to build a framing of what is racial justice and how do we really come at this sense of anti-Blackism in the society. As a local leader here, especially between our janitorial and our security officers, our janitors are pretty much predominantly immigrant. Our security officers are predominantly African-American. And we've leaned in on trying to really create a space so people can show up as who they are, so we can build power across difference. I think too often we go to the kumbaya and we don't really address the differences we have. And the differences is our strengths, our language, our culture, the way we celebrate, the way we do things as families. I think we have to be able to accept those differences we have, really lean in, show up authentically, so when we show up, then we can really tackle the issues that we have that really keep us down. Because the thing is that the reality is that if the two most marginalized communities in this city are marginalizing each other, we're not going to be able to achieve what we can achieve, right? And I just really think, I was listening to Mayor Bass in the green room, her experience, her ability to be able to lead this city at this moment in time, she's the right person for this job. Not because she's Black, but because she has the talent, the intelligence to be able to do it. That fact that she's Black makes it even better, in my opinion. So I think we have the answers. We don't need someone from outside of the community telling us how to do this. I think we have the answers ourselves, and we could really, I think, in my opinion, lean into this moment, find the unity amongst us, but show up authentically as a proud Chicano who has, 2 generations in this city, and this beloved city. I'm gonna fight for every single person in this city. And I don't care what color, what language, who they are, because this is my city and I'm not gonna relinquish it to no one.
That's right.
David, do you think local authorities can do more, local and state authorities can do more to face the situation? I know they don't have the power because it is federal power, but can they do a little more than what we've seen, or you think this is enough?
No, absolutely, they could do a lot more. You know, I'm going to say it. I'm disappointed right now in how our police force has shown up. In all the forces, right? Sheriff, you know, all of them. Because let's get this straight. They are using violence. They are using intimidation. You know, they are using tactics that at one point in time would be considered excessive and potentially illegal. And if the police, our local police force, do not defend the citizens, the residents of this state against that act of aggression, then who do we turn to? We have to have that sense of security. You know, when we talk about this city as being a sanctuary city, it's for the protection of all of us. It's so that everybody feels safe in this city. So that if you're a victim of crime, regardless of your status, you can report that crime to be defended by the police that's supposed to defend us. And if the police are taking at best a non-position and just present there, or sometimes you even see as if they're protecting ICE and not us, that's a problem.
So do you think like the fact that LA is a sanctuary city, is that a false sense of hope? Because at the end of the day, we've seen the raids and the operations happening. So how do you tell people when they feel like they should be protected, but they're not, things are still happening?
Well, look, I still believe in the values and the principles of Sanctuary City. I think it is the right policy. It's the wrong federal government, right? It's the federal government and the federal forces that are basically attacking our values, attacking our principles, attacking our sense of peace as community. And, you know, defending against that is going to take all of our collective sanctuary to come at it. There's no policy right now. I'm going to say this. There's no policy right now that will protect us from them.
Right.
They are determined to take down any type of constitutional right that we have in this country. They are determined to dismantle any sense of peace and normality that we have in our lives to benefit themselves and the oligarchs that are now behind them. And so I think, you know, I still lean in to the values that we have collectively in this city, because that's our greatest defense, is leaning into our values, leaning into our principles, standing united against this, and not accepting this as a normal moment, because there's nothing normal about what's happening in this moment in time.
In talking about this moment, Marta, over 2 million people in LA County are either undocumented or they live with undocumented family members. So at Carecen, you've been working and providing services, legal services, to multiple immigrant communities. What's happening on the ground as we speak? What has your organization seen in the past 4 or 5 months?
Wow. Thank you so much for having me here. It's quite an honor to be here and to be on the panel with these amazing people that I look up to. I think on the ground, in the front lines, we are seeing, as David Nana mentioned, violence, aggression, repression. We also manage a day labor center on Wilshire and Union. We've been raided 4 times. Each time it gets more and more violent. The last time we had tear gas, rubber bullets. We had people running and falling and hurting themselves, children crying for their mothers. We had people that are undocumented being detained, but also people that are documented being detained. I think this is an issue, again, that it's about violating people's constitutional and human rights, whether you're documented or not. And that's why this is an issue that concerns us all. I think this is an issue of we are at war in our communities, and they are making Los Angeles and other major cities an example, and also conditioning us to really believe that it's okay for federal authorities to come into the cities, militarize, and use violence to subdue blue cities or blue states or states and cities that are supposedly against the federal government. And so I think that this is a moment not only to lean into our values and principles, but this is a moment where we have to constantly remind ourselves and each other that we cannot lose hope. That is what they want. And that this is not a moment to be afraid. And I know that that is easier said than done. It is scary. But this is a moment to be bold. This is a moment to be leaders. This is a moment to send a message to our communities that they are not alone. And like David said, that we're all going to fight collectively and in a way that we are united to make sure that we can protect as many people as possible. I also think it's really important for us to address issues of racism and anti-Blackness within our communities and our families. This is the moment to have those difficult conversations across the dining table with our families, because unfortunately we know that many of our families and our neighbors voted for this administration. And so we have to address those difficult issues, and we have to make sure that we are being honest and allow ourselves to be uncomfortable, because that's the only way that we're going to achieve real change. And we know that so many of those decisions that have hurt so many of us are made out of ignorance and fear. And so we need to have those conversations. We need to be able to talk about them and hopefully evolve as communities.
Thank you, Marta. Victor Leon from ACLU. So kind of going back to this same subject, we're seeing federal agents coming to neighborhoods. We're seeing challenges to due process when people get detained. We have seen an increase in executive orders regarding immigration. The question is, where is this all headed?
That's a tough question, but I'll start by thanking you and the Urban League for having me. It's a real privilege to be up here with these folks talking in this space and sharing space with everybody. But where are we headed? Right now, in the same trajectory we're going right now, nowhere good, obviously. We have tanks in the streets. We have masked troops with assault rifles, abducting people. They are zip tying people, putting them in the back of trucks. We have comedians being canceled for just making fun of the administration. All of this is the road towards authoritarianism. But I will say, we don't want to sugarcoat where we're at, but we have a choice right now. We are at a crossroads, and we're already halfway down that line, but we can turn around and go back. And what it's going to take is solidarity, like we talked about. It's going to take organizations like ours, the ACLU, but I say we as in the entire civil rights community, Caressa, Public Council, everybody, filing lawsuits in the federal and state courts to enforce our rights. The California legislature with Governor Newsom passing more sanctuary policies to protect our immigrant communities. Like Mayor Bass said, and like the LA County has been doing, protecting us with local ordinances. But it's not just that. It is organizing, mobilizing, speaking truth to power. That is what's going to save us in the end of the day. We've seen this in this country since it's been founded. This is nothing new. We were founded through genocide. We were founded through slavery, through Jim Crow, segregation, Japanese internment, the Patriot Act. I mean, I could go on and on. We could talk about this for hours. This is nothing new, but we bear the scars of those terrible, terrible policies, but we got through it. We got through it because we banded together and we did not acquiesce, we did not capitulate, and we fought, and that's what we're going to have to do. The last thing I'll close on is the last No Kings March was the largest mobilization in U.S. history. The folks on this panel, the folks in this room helped put that together. We have another one coming up this Saturday.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, if we are going to get through this, you are going to have to go out, be uncomfortable, sacrifice, show that courage, be out in the streets, convince your family members, convince your friends, convince your children to go out there and make your voices heard. That's the only way to stop where we're going. And I have hope. I have true confidence that we are going to get there.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you for that. Now we're going to jump to Angie Jean-Marie. Angie, so you're a first-generation immigrant. Please tell us about that experience, your family. We're going to try to make it more personal at this point, so go ahead.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be on stage with everyone. So my family came here in the 80s from Haiti, one of the many countries that this administration is are people from countries that the administration is trying to target. And family members came with all kinds of statuses, came as students, stayed as not students. It has been quite a journey over 30, 40 years to have family members go through the process, the normal legal process to be able to get legal status in the United States. I want to make it clear, especially for people who are coming from countries that are where they're Black or brown, it's not easy. It is not simple. It's long. It's complicated. It's expensive. And to have this administration be challenging TPS status, for example, for Haitian migrants. I have an uncle who's here with TPS status. And what this administration is threatening to do is to remove his status and send him back to Haiti or some other place where if he goes back to Haiti, given what's going on in the country, the outcome is not going to be good. I talk to my dad all the time, who's worried about his brother. And so what we're hearing from everyone across the panel is that this administration is applying indiscriminate ideas, laws, and ideologies that are harmful. They're dangerous. They're murderous in some instances. So I think it's important that we're really clear about what these policies are going to result in. The other thing, just to put, to add to the panel, as everyone was sharing, I was thinking about, LA has been the scene of many uprisings, including recently in 2020. And following those uprisings, we were talking about what happens when our police departments are over-militarized. This is what we're seeing. And so when we say that there's need for solidarity, it's not just for one crisis or one given moment. We need to have solidarity across these various crises where we can see that there's harm that's being really created in our communities. Because if it's not you today, it's going to be you tomorrow.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's really heartbreaking to know the real impacts of what's happening across so many different communities and immigrant communities across the LA and the country.
Going back to TPS, for Haitians, it was supposed to end in September, then it was extended until February of next year. DHS basically said that it is safe for Haitian citizens to go back home and that therefore Haiti no longer meets the conditions of TPS. But then that's one agency, but then you have the Department of State who has issued an active do not travel warning to Haiti. So it's two different messages. Same government, different agencies, different messages. What do you think about that?
We know that they're not coordinated and that this administration is not necessarily applying logic to its decisions. And so it is clear that the administration is using the DHS as a vehicle to exact an ideological war against people in the United States. It doesn't mean that what they're trying to do is true or right or good. And when you look at, you could look up any headline about what's unfortunately happening in Haiti. It becomes abundantly clear within seconds that that's not a place that would be safe to send people back to. And when you think about who are TPS holders, these are folks that are now making lives here. TPS status was first applied to Haitian migrants after the 2010 earthquake. And so there are people who might be in the country with this status who've now been in the United States for going on more than a decade. So just to put into context the way that this administration is seeking to uproot people's lives and put them into dangerous situations. And again, when it comes to solidarity, there are people there are folks from Latin America who've been here their entire life and who are being threatened to be sent back to a country that they're not familiar with. And so I think it is important to just be very clear that this administration is not creating any room for compassion with these policies. And it's sad to see.
And according to USC, almost 70% of undocumented Californians have been here in the country for more than a decade. So kind of going back to your point that they've been here for a long time. David, you are the president of SEIU, USWW. You've advocated for immigrant communities, immigrant workers throughout basically your whole career. You were also detained in June when everything started. You're an American citizen. So can you please tell us about that experience and what has that taught you?
Sure. So I got to be careful what I say.
Yeah, thank you. Don't say that.
This is the solidarity we're looking for.
This is the second time I've been asked that question in front of Nana. She looks at me like, I'm watching you. Thank you. No, first of all, yeah, I details I can't really be forthcoming on because still pending the charges. But I can say I was exercising my First Amendment right. I was tackled, taken down. I was pepper sprayed, and it wasn't sprayed. It was basically put throughout my whole face. And what happened is on video, and everybody is there to see it and know the truth about what happened. And I look at myself, but I consider myself an innocent man. And I will continue to be an innocent man. And I always say this, you will never hear guilty come out of these lips. You know? But what I can say is, and we speak about this violence, is there's a purpose for their violence. There's a purpose for their intimidation. They want to silence us. They want us to collectively bend that knee. They want to impose their will and that we will submit ourselves to them. And as they do that, they also are doing it intentionally to distract from what is really happening, right? They're using this tactic to be performative and cruel against the most vulnerable in our community, right? And while they do that, they basically moved the greatest transfer of wealth that we have seen in this country from poor people to the wealthy and kept in place their wealth so they can make billionaires into trillionaires, right? Because we're headed in that direction. They're eliminated Medicaid. Right now, we shut down a whole government. And thank God the Dems are fighting back, right? But they shut down a whole government, and they don't want to give a penny to the people who need it most, and that's for their health care. But we see Medicaid being cut. We're going to feel the pain of that over the next 2 years. 20 million people, I think, if not more people, are going to lose their health care. You see SNAP programs going to disappear. What's going to happen with all our children who go to school, who need that sustenance to be able to learn? They're dismantling our public school education, and they're putting 10,000 more ICE agents, $170 billion to put more agents. I call them the green shirts, right? Because, for those of you who remember history, Hitler had his brown shirts, Mussolini has blue shirts, Franco had his black shirts. Well, Trump has his green shirts. And it's a Gestapo. And they're doing that so they can continue to transfer that wealth into the oligarchs who are now in charge. And so, my detention was a stand, in my opinion. It was a stand for our First Amendment. It was a stand for the thousands of workers that I represent and the millions of workers out there who are right now in the crosshairs of this government. And, I pride myself in the fact that, I've been in this now for 29 years organizing workers. I've never once asked a worker about their status. Because my job is to organize workers and improve the quality of life for working people. And working people, regardless of status and regardless of color, need to stand together to fight back in this moment in time. And I firmly believe that the very people that they have right now in the crosshairs is going to be the people who actually save our democracy in this fight.
Thank you, David. I saw when you finally came out a few days later, and you were really emotional because you were thinking about those who are still inside. What was the experience when you were detained? Exactly, can you describe it to us?
Sure. Well, look, people are not meant to be incarcerated. And, mine was only 3 days. And part of the challenge leaving the detention center was knowing that I left some really good people behind there. And, what I said, in the plaza there is that there's more honor in that 5th level tier than there is in the White House put together. And And I firmly believe that. I met, and look, the conditions, you all know this, right? It's not any secret. Black people over here, paisanos over here, sureños over here, white people over here. Everybody's segregated, self-segregate, It's kind of like what they've done to us in society, right? But everybody in there is they're united in the sense of because of their predicament. When I was in there, I laid low. I was like, I don't need nobody to know who I am. I'm just gonna get out. I don't want no drama. I don't want no conflict. I don't want, you never know, right? And we were told at the very beginning, this is the rules in this place, and you're gonna honor these rules. And that wasn't the jailers who told us, that was the other detainees. And so, you honor the rules, but I was just keeping my head low. And then when they found out that I was the president of the union, right, it came out on TV, and I'm like sitting there going like, oh my God, this is over, And, and this is why I said the honor is because, when they found out who I was, they sat there and they wanted to know my story. And I told them my story. I told them what happened. And I remember this young man called Little Man. He's not a young man anymore. He's been locked up for 32 years. He had let me tell you, this young man, I should say, he was 17 years old when he went in for attempted homicide. And they gave him 3 life sentences at the age of 17, I'm sorry, 3 life sentences. He got his commuted to 37 years. That man has no business being in that prison. He has no business being in that jail. But when they found out who I was, I say this humbly, but they applauded me for being there with them and saying that and honoring the fact that my arrest was to defend working people. And, I also talked to a few other detainees who were there. One gentleman in particular who was from El Salvador, who left his country at 16 years old. Fear of being recruited by the gangs in El Salvador, fearing for his life, because if he'd gotten recruited, he knew his destiny was going to be death or incarceration or some other horrible ending. And, he's a drill press operator. He's a skilled laborer. He's been in this country now, I think he's been in close to 20 years. And they picked him up at work. They disappeared him for at least a week. And he's terrified about going back to his country because since he's been here, he got a tattoo of the Virgen Guadalupe. For all of you know she's the icon of she's our patron saint for Mexicanos, but now it's everybody. And he's terrified about going back to El Salvador. He's not a gang member, he's a worker. But if he goes back to El Salvador, they're going to put him in CCOT. And he's going to be in jail with the very people he tried to flee from to save his own life. And that's the cruelty of this government, is they do not care. They send to Uganda. They send them like anywhere. And they don't care about the human condition. And when you have a government that no longer cares about the human condition, what do they care about us?
Right.
If our government does not care about our collective human condition, what does that say for us in our future? And so, my experience in there, like I said, I met some honorable men up there. I met some good people. And for whatever reason they're there, whether it was because they were working and trying to provide a living for their family, like my dad used to say, put food on the table, shoes on your feet, a roof over your head, or if you were there because you made some bad decisions as a young person, there was more honor there than there is in the White House. And I stand by that.
Thank you, David, for sharing that story with everyone. Going back to you, Nana, what is the experience for Black immigrants when they get detained? I know your organization did a study back in 2022 about the higher risks that they face when they are in these detention centers.
Thank you for that. I'm going to broaden it a little bit, right? Because I think it's important, especially since we're here with National Urban League talking about the state of Black LA, that we make sure that we talk about how all of this is impacting Black people generally. right? Which black migrants are a part of black people. I was born here in this country of Ghanaian parents, like a Toyota made in Kansas. I continue to be Ghanaian, even though I obviously also am USian, right? And I think it's really important because we need, the understanding that this immigration piece is really being used as the tip of the spear to break open the police state that they really want.
That's right.
Right? That's what it's for. And the goal is that to make us comply. The goal is to let us feel like we can't do anything while they do all of these horrible things to us. Again, to benefit the billionaires. They have like a white billionaire fascist Euro future that they're trying to head us towards. And when you see what's happening with black immigrants and the way in which that police state is playing out, it's playing out in ways that we all recognize, particularly as black people, but to the nth degree, right? And so I'm thinking about how in LA, they definitely led with the immigration issue, right? Then when they went to DC, y'all remember, it was crime and immigration, right? And so, we had black folks, citizens or non-citizen, that were on bikes delivering food. They were literally hooking folks, the masked men, around their necks on scooters and bikes and throwing their faces into the ground, okay? Going after, having all these traffic stops. And it started to be a wax on, wax off, right? And so with us, it's at the courthouses, it was at the immigration check-ins. Yes, it's at the courthouses, any kind of courthouse, civil courthouse, domestic violence, criminal courthouses, et cetera. And immigration, of course, immigration check-ins, but also in the places where they know that we are most vulnerable in terms of work, right? So with black immigrants, it's not that they're gonna go in and say, oh, there's people in a field, unless it's Haitians in Massachusetts or something, and go after folks. But it was that they were doing it in ways in which, for example, Uber drivers, right? People, Uber Lyft drivers, people that are delivering food, people that are the places where the bikes are getting fixed, right? Really being focused, our hair braiding places, places where we sell our goods, folks that are selling, street vendors that sell you the Louis Vuitton instead of Louis Vuitton, right? All of that is who they were going after. And some of those folks are immigrants and some are multi-generational African American, right? We know that our people right here in LA get stopped and harassed by the police. And then, we think about the move to Chicago and we saw how they attacked that apartment building, right? And what they did. They had 8-year-old black girls with zip ties and they were not asking what their citizenship status was before they were taking them. And so that cruelty that you saw where they were breaking into people's places, grabbing them, zip tying them, that is normal, par for the course for black immigrants. That's what we've been experiencing, right? They have a wrap now that wraps your whole body. Your whole body, like in a cocoon. And then they put a hood over your head. And they're just showing that now. I can tell you stories of black migrants that were dealing with that 5 years ago during this first disastrous Trump administration, right, regime. And so, you look in prisons, we're the most likely to be in solitary confinement. We're 8% of the immigrant population, 20% of those facing deportation before all of this, right? We're included in those people who have died. 20 people have died in ICE detention. Generally, 2 people were killed by ICE, shot, dead in the street, right? And we know that that's going to increase. When we see what's happening in Memphis, again, there's supposed to be this train, right? This thing they're moving. They didn't even start with ICE. They started with U.S. Marshals doing 50 warrants a day. Who do you think they're doing warrants on? Then they moved to 100 warrants a day. These are not immigration warrants, though. Criminal punishment system warrants. Who do you think they're doing that on? Will they come back to L.A. to come grab the rest of us black folks? Yes. Yes, and they will do it under crime, right? Under this notion of, LA is so full of crime before the World Cup or before the Olympics, or whatever they're trying to do, right? And that will be there. And what we found in Chicago, and I'll end with this because, we look at the travel ban in most of the countries of folks that can't come here are black immigrants. I can go on and on, but I want to make it broader. Because when we look at Chicago, when we look at Memphis, the most unprepared for this invasion is black people. We don't have rapid response systems. We don't have hotlines. We're not sharing information on know your rights except for the homie to homie, and the homie don't know what the heck the homie talking about. Right? And so we have got to get ready, because when this hammer comes on us, I'm here as Black immigrant. I'm here as a person that does this work every day and has actually been doing it since 1994, right? Old as dirt and twice as funky. When they come for Black people, they are not going to sift you out just like they didn't sift out the Black people in Chicago, and they didn't sift out the Black people in Memphis until they had handcuffed them, chain linked them, sent them in, wrapped them up. That's when you get the sift out, and by that time it's too late.
Yeah.
So we've got to be clear. That united resistance I'm talking about, that block and build that we're talking about, we've got to start it now and not wait until they're back on the doorstep.
Thank you, Nana, for that. And kind of going back to the same topic, Marta, you said that there's a lack of resources for Black immigrant communities. Kind of going back to what you're saying, there's no safety net. So how can communities change that? Because there's a lot of organizations for Latino immigrants and resources. But what about the Black immigrants? How can they access these resources?
Well, let's be clear. There's never enough resources for anyone. But I think as an immigrant rights movement, we have to make sure that that we're out there advocating for resources, and we're fighting for additional support, that we're fighting for all immigrants, whether we're brown or Black immigrants. And we will have to make sure that as a movement, we are inclusive of the wide range of what it means to be an immigrant in the United States. And so I think that what Nana is saying is true. I think that often Black immigrant organizations don't receive the amount of resources that they should. And so we all need to be part of that fight, and we all need to show up for each other. But I also want to say that the United States has sold us a lie, right? And this federal government has sold us a lie. This administration, no surprise to anyone, has lied to us that immigrants are bad for this country. They have that narrative that they are bad for our cities, they're bad for our countries, they're taking away our jobs, they're taking away resources, and that is not true. And so I think that we need to make sure that we are getting ourselves educated and that we understand the bigger picture and the issues, to make sure that we are educating our families and our communities, and that we know exactly what the bigger picture is and what the bigger picture plan is to enrich the rich, the already rich, and to make sure that the people that have nothing have less than nothing. And so we need to make sure that we are very clear on what's happening. And what Nana said is exactly right. This is something that is talking about constitutional rights, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, et cetera, that is going to affect us all. Also, I think it's important to note that for a city like Los Angeles and many other cities throughout the country, the immigrant community, whether Black or brown, are critical to the economies and to the stability of those cities and those states. And so, again, this is something that affects everyone in one way or another. And so we're all in this together. We're all, need to be prepared, and we all need to make sure that we are showing up for each other.
Thank you, Marta. Victor, as far as the numbers, we already kind of went through it, but we mentioned this just in the summer in the LA region, it was 5,000. Is this something that is normal? Is it a lot? Can you please tell us, how does that compare to previous years?
Sure. And just before I get into that question, I know David can't say it or doesn't want to talk about his case, but I saw the video, and the only illegal thing I saw was what happened to you, not what you did.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
it was retaliation for you exercising your First Amendment rights, and it is outrageous. But so to answer your question, nothing about what is happening is normal, as we all know. Adelanto Detention Center before this summer had 10 people in it, and now it has more than 2,000 people in it. We don't even know if those people are undocumented or not. They're not getting due process. They're having very difficult time accessing attorneys. And so they are rounding up thousands, literally thousands of people on a daily basis or on a monthly basis here in Los Angeles. And I'll say that not only is the number just really, really extreme. But the way that they're doing it is absolutely illegal and unconstitutional. So this all happened, it started actually before the summer. So even before the Trump inauguration, ICE in Kern, so in the Bakersfield area, conducted a really horrific raid against migrant workers there. We and our partners sued right away. So this is in January. And we got an injunction, so an order from a judge saying back then, hey, you can't use these tactics. This is racial profiling. This is illegal. This violates the Fourth Amendment. And actually very grateful that that injunction is still in place. The Supreme Court didn't do anything with it. And so there actually are no such raids in Kern County right now. Now, the terrible thing is they shifted their focus to here in Los Angeles. We and our partners filed a lawsuit here as well. And we got another great injunction. I think it was all over the news. You are not allowed to racially profile. People in detention must have access to attorneys. You can't house people in the basement of a federal building and give them one meal a day and not give them beds and blankets and all this kind of stuff. And so we got this great order. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals actually, did not stop the order. They supported the order. And then really, unfortunately, the Supreme Court, through what they called a shadow docket, they didn't overturn the order. They just said, the order is stayed for the duration of the case.
So what's next? What happens now with the TRO?
No, it's a great question. So the misinformation out there right now that you hear in the news, the narrative on social media, is that the Supreme Court is endorsing racial profiling and saying that's okay. That's not what they did. It was the quote-unquote shadow docket. There was no decision. There's no precedent there. All they did was overturn that order. And what you read in a lot of the news is Judge Kavanaugh's, a single judge's opinion, saying that if he gets the chance, he would endorse racial profiling, but it's unclear where the other justices are. And of course, the three kind of more progressive justices fought back very valiantly against that. And so what happened is they sent it back down. And so the case is proceeding now. And we're in a fight right now with the government. They're trying to go as slow as possible to prevent a new order saying that they cannot racially profile. And we're trying to go as quickly as possible. We're in what's called discovery. So we're getting as many documents to prove our case. But honestly, it's not even necessary because they're telling us what they're doing. They're saying, we're going out there and we're going to arrest people based on how you look.
Right.
And for us, hopefully, for the Supreme Court as well, that is grossly unconstitutional. You cannot do that in this country. It flies in the face of everything that we've fought for hundreds of years.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Victor. We're going to, again, round it up to the main question. Angie, solutions and strategies for both communities to come together in solidarity and work together, specifically for the immigration issue.
One thing I want to mention is I chair the board of Inclusive Action for the City. It's an immigrant rights and economic justice organization. And organizations like Inclusive Action and others here on the panel are thinking about practical ways to protect people. One of the things that Inclusive Action just recently passed, the governor just signed Bill 635, which is the Street Vendor Business Protection Act, which prohibits local law enforcement from asking street vendors questions, whether it's name, documentation status, address, so that we can protect our street vendors and immigrants in our communities from being at risk of law enforcement action. We're also in the midst of a lawsuit against the federal government because the federal government is trying to get IRS to release ITIN numbers. So if you are here undocumented or you might want a different tax identifier, there are many people who are undocumented and who want to pay into our systems, actively are paying into our systems, who are ITIN holders. Well, the IRS and now DHS are going to be coordinating to get those ITIN numbers in order to execute law enforcement actions in these ICE raids. So we're in a lawsuit to contest that kind of action. And so solutions, I think we're on stage with incredible organizations. I've been a long time, just individual donor supporter of Baji, and I think being able to support organizations that are working on the front lines of these issues is really important. I also think for all of us as Angelenos, one of the things that actually really frustrates me about this moment is that Los Angeles and California, we're an enormous economic capital of the world. That's right. We are a cultural capital of the world. 30 to 40% of all goods that enter the United States enter through the port of Los Angeles. Why are you messing with us? And so I think that I think it's incumbent upon all of us to think about what tools, what power, what ecosystems do we have that we can put to the task of protecting one another? How are we going to be protesting? How are we setting up secure sites for community members? At Inclusive Action, when we saw the raids start happening, one of the things that we do in our work is we actually lend to street vendors who are usually start out of being able to access loans from banks. We forgave loans because we knew that people couldn't safely go out to work and earn the money to be able to repay the loans that we're offering. So I think it requires really careful and thoughtful strategy to put yourself in the position of thinking about, what do I have in my wheelhouse, in my capacity, in my organization, in my community that I can lend in order to protect the people who are our neighbors and our fellow residents of this incredible city and region?
Thank you, Angie. And Marta, to close it down, fear, we can see it. We see it in the reports, what we have in Telemundo, and you see it all over the place. Immigrants are really scared, regardless if they're Latino, Black, or from different parts of the world. I was undocumented for 6 years when I came to this country. I don't remember being that scared to what I see right now on the news, on the stories that we share every single day. So it's easier said than done, but the fear, how can they work around it so they can continue coming out and doing whatever they have to do? They can go to school, go to their medical appointments. They're missing their doctor's appointments. Any advice for our communities?
I think it's really important for people to know that they want us to be afraid. They want us to think that everybody hates us. They want us to think that we're isolated and that we're alone. But the truth of the matter is that the majority of people in this country are with us. The majority of people in this country, Black, brown, white, understand what's happening in this country and want to work toward protecting our communities. We were just on a fundraiser on the West Side, and people were in tears that this is happening to their community, to their city. And these are folks that have never been involved in the political environment. And so just forget that you're not alone. I know that it's easier said than done. I know there's a lot of scary things, but organizations like ours are going to continue to fight and continue to try to protect as many people as possible. And everybody can do their part. I know I feel better when I'm marching. I know I feel better when I'm helping or when I'm donating. And everybody has their limits. Everybody has their parameters, but everybody can do something to help each other.
Awesome. Well, give it up to our panelists. Thank you so much. And that concludes our panel. Hopefully you learned something valuable this afternoon. We've had a lot of ideas, and the key is for both communities to continue working together. Regardless of your skin color or whatever it is your background, continue working together.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, go ahead.
Tomorrow, no King Saturday.
No guess.